In the late 1980s, Disney and George Lucas roared into their partnership, starting with Captain EO starring Michael Jackson, and then Disneyland's newest thrill ride, Star Tours. The world's first motion simulator attraction, to say the wild romp through the galaxy far, far away was a game changer would be a hellacious understatement. With the first Star Tours open, it was clear it would be a staple across the globe in Tokyo, Orlando, and eventually in the then-in-development Euro Disneyland. With Star Wars thoroughly addressed, it was apparent where Disney Imagineers and Lucasfilm had to roll on to next. For the globe-trotting adventures of Indiana Jones, Imagineers decided to head to the Lost Delta of India. Several early concepts were considered, including a walk-through adventure and a high-speed mine car through a temple based on the Temple of Doom installment of the franchise. Imagineers even considered using the Jungle Cruise to shuttle guests to the loading area of these attractions. The plans were immense and called for radical transformations to the park's Adventureland and indeed the park as a whole, creating an entire subland dedicated to the khaki-clad adventurer. This was Indiana Jones and the Lost Expedition. Inside this huge temple ride complex, weaving amongst caves and caverns, guests would have found two brand new rides, that minecart coaster and the first ever enhanced motion vehicle attraction. Ultimately, Indiana Jones and the Lost Expedition stayed lost. Instead, then CEO Michael Eisner allegedly fell head over heels for an expansion aimed at the northwest end of the park, called the Zip-a-Dee River Run, which he'd later insist be called Splash Mountain. WDI was still developing an Indiana Jones mini-land for Disneyland Paris's Adventureland, though, and while those plans included a new, darker, and scarier Jungle Cruise, it also included the enhanced motion vehicle Jeep ride. Unfortunately, Euro Disneyland had immediate needs for more rides, so it was decided to build just one smaller Indiana Jones offering to be ready shortly after the park opened. On July 30th, 1993, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril was the first ever Disney roller coaster to feature an inversion and the first ever Disney thrill ride to have a track gauge wider than 50 inches at 55. Despite lacking the indoor show building in the same scale as its Blue Sky predecessor, the final attraction stays true to the heavy theming of the original plans, with enough landscaping, winding paths, and lush vegetation. However, to this day, there still feels like something is missing just next door to the compact coaster, because, well, there is. At this point, the Jeep Expedition was still in the works, though. WDI was developing the attraction for both Disneyland in Anaheim and still for Disneyland Paris simultaneously. Walt Disney World was also very interested in the project. The ride would take guests through a shorter version of the original Jeep Expedition, but without the inclusion of the Jungle Cruise and the Ore Car coaster.
So, time had marched on, and as we were completing Disneyland Paris, the cannon was fired to do this, and Michael was adamant. They said, we can't afford not to do this. The property's hot, and the ride system you guys have come up with is ingenious, and if we wait, someone else is going to do something like this. So they greenlit that project, and as I came home off of Europe, we moved right in on top of the Indiana Jones project for Disneyland.
So what was this ingenious ride system? To simulate the rough road conditions needed for a daring expedition through a cursed temple, Imagineers were inventing the Enhanced Motion Vehicle, otherwise known as the EMV. Building off the simulator technology that made Star Tours the biggest hit of themed entertainment in the 80s, Tony Baxter and company decided it would be perfect to miniaturize the motion simulator and put it on top of a moving chassis. This would give guests a motion simulator type experience, but through a physical ride environment. Early testing and development of the system was done in a warehouse in Burbank, where a small track was assembled. The system would supposedly also allow for 160,000 unique ride combinations, from audio to car movement to lighting and much more, as Disney rides move truly into the computer age. The EMVs are driven less than 14 miles per hour or 23 kilometers an hour by air-filled tractor-trailer tires atop the surface of a slotted bed. Beneath the slot, a tubular guide rail guides the front wheel set and is responsible for supplying power to the vehicle. The power is divided among the communications, control, safety, audio systems, and the two motion systems, both propulsion and hydraulics. The EMV motion base is attached by 3 hydraulic actuators to the frame of the chassis, carrying the bulk of unsprung weight, allowing the low-mass body shell to animate independently and rapidly with micrometer precision by incorporating a position feedback system. 3 actuators are used on the chassis motion platform to position the motion base in 6 degrees of freedom. 3 thrust planes being X, Y, and Z, with 3 rotational axes, pitch, roll, and yaw. A guest's physically intense experience is programmed to achieve the illusion of greater speed and catastrophic mechanical failure, using the enhanced motion vehicle's ability to add several feet of lift, then rapidly descend, shudder and tremble, and intensify cornering with counterbank and twist. Each transport would accommodate 12 guests with 3 rows of seats, 4 across. The ride system would allow for excellent capacity at a theoretical 2,400 guests an hour. Groundbreaking for the Temple of the Forbidden Eye occurred in August of 1993 at Disneyland Park. More than 400 Imagineers worked on its design and construction, and Tony Baxter led a core project team of nearly 100. A grand opening for the Indiana Jones adventure Temple of the Forbidden Eye was scheduled for March 3, 1995 for media, with the legendary attraction opening to guests on March 5th. Again, the game was changed forever.
Now dare to cross forbidden boundaries to the ultimate adventure. Come on! It's more than a ride. It's real. Now your fears have a name. The Indiana Jones Adventure, new at Disneyland.
With the success of the EMV Jeep adventure, more iterations of the ride were planned. Early concepts for Disneyland Asia, what would eventually become Hong Kong Disneyland, included the attraction. Budget constraints from a truly reviled management regime would keep the ride far away from that project, while continued concerns at Disneyland Paris would leave the expansion pad in Adventureland dormant until today. However, budget cuts of the time would somehow clear the path for the EMV to come to Walt Disney World. In 1987, Imagineer Joe Rohde received the green light to proceed with Walt Disney World's 4th theme park before the 3rd, the Disney MGM Studios, was even built. The park would be a celebration of animals, real, fantastical, and extinct. With research trips and early conceptual work underway for many years, dinosaurs were envisioned as part of the park from the very beginning. The dinosaur craze of the 1990s, fueled by Universal Pictures' Jurassic Park, would only increase the need for the creatures in the 4th gate. In fact, inspired by those rides in development and Jurassic Park's success, Disney put an animated dinosaur film into development. As work on Disney's Wild Animal Kingdom theme park continued, multiple e-ticket rides were envisioned. In the beastly kingdom of creatures never real, the Dragon's Tower suspended roller coaster would have taken guests flying into an encounter with a fiery beast. Meanwhile, Dino Natureland's thrill ride was the Excavator. The fossil-fueled area would be set up as a dig site with a nearby museum. The ride at the museum would take families on a calm journey back to the age of the dinosaurs, starting inside before traveling outside into a prehistoric biome full of realistic audio animatronics. Meanwhile, the Excavator would have utilized minecart-style train cars in a ride through the old worksite where, in the backstory of the land, the very first bones were found in Diggs County. Keep out warning signs would flank the entry as you board what can be assumed was an attraction set up by the grad students that run the nearby dig site. During the ride, your mining train would pass through dinosaur bones and around the centerpiece of this out-of-control wooden roller coaster, an old excavator that the college kids altered to look like a dinosaur. The Excavator, or just simply the dig site coaster as noted in some early concept art, was ultimately canceled. Most claim it was due to budget cuts, but some also believe the Imagineers just weren't excited by the concept. Either way, the adjacent Boneyard Playground would come to fruition. Meanwhile, the tightened budget pushed Beastly Kingdom into a Phase 2 of the park that never saw the light of day, and with these 2 e-tickets sidelined, the park needed a thrill ride for when it opened. Quickly, the slow-moving outdoor Dino Safari became something else. The outdoor attraction did kind of see the light of day, though. On the short-lived Discovery Riverboats attraction, which for some reason was Radio Disney themed before they gave up on the ride altogether, there was an audio animatronic iguanodon in the water near Dinoland. He didn't last long, but he existed. Utilizing the same ride system and layout as Disneyland's Indiana Jones Adventure, Countdown to Extinction would act as this land's version of a safari, while also providing the most thrilling ride for the last park ever built at the vacation kingdom of the world. It may have started with the same layout as Indy, but some areas were cut short to save money, including the dino version of the bridge scene. The museum Journey to the Past storyline would be reworked to still be a time-traveling dinosaur ride. The theme of a scientific institute would be used, one that wants to teach visitors through a hands-on trip back to the early Cretaceous period with the world's first time machine, the CTX Time Rover. The Time Rover does not accomplish this feat alone, though. It does so with the help of a massive time vortex device that was built in a new wing of the Dino Institute. Of course, this is a theme park ride, so the placid trip to the early Cretaceous period that was planned doesn't happen. Instead, guests would arrive moments before an extinction-level event hits Earth, the meteor strike that ended most life forms on the planet. Theme park guests would be searching a primeval jungle for an iguanodon to bring back to the present, all while the big meteorite is closing in. 12 of the largest audio animatronics ever built to that point, and numerous animated figures would populate the attraction. One of the largest smoke machine installations in theme park history would be there as well, with lasers, pyrotechnics, and projection effects alongside. Countdown to Extinction opened, sponsored with a generous grant from McDonald's Corporation, on April 22, 1998, with the rest of Disney's Animal Kingdom. Its tagline, "It's fast, it's a blast, it's in the past." The approach to the Dino Institute featured posters for the experience, large fossils, and eventually a splash pad fountain with a statue of a Styracosaurus in the center. The area was meant for kids to have some water play, but eventually was sealed off and became a simple water feature. Guests enter the Dino Institute past those quaint exhibits in the old wing, how dinosaurs had been presented to the public to this point in time. Guests then pass through one of the two orientation rooms where Dr. Marsh, played by Felicia Rashad, would welcome them to the Institute and explain the breakthrough that they had made with the CTX Time Rover.
That's proprietary.
The video feed would then change to the control center, where Dr. Seeker is intended to give safety instructions to the guests. He instead uses it as an opportunity to enlist them in his unauthorized mission to get an iguanodon back to today. Despite a reprimand from Marsh, Seeker still sends guests to the dangerous end of the dinosaurs through the very industrial-looking new wing, a former sewer drain flanked by power generators. Guests would then head down a hallway where every few seconds they were reminded via audio that McDonald's had paid for this, before heading downstairs and boarding that EMV ride vehicle, this time the CTX Time Rover, a reference to the attraction's original name. A security beam would scan the vehicles as the ride begins, which we assume would have stopped Dr. Seeker from going with us. The rovers pass a then-empty security station as the system realizes the destination is unauthorized. However, it's too late. The doors open to the vortex, smoke fills the room, and the Time Rover begins to float through space into the past. Strobes would flash, actual sparks would fly from the walls, and a laser portal would beacon vehicles forward. The Time Rover would barely make it through the portal as it closes, but guests are dropped into the jungle. Meteorites are already falling as we encounter our first dinosaur,
Styracosaurus.
As the rover climbs uphill, guests are treated to an Alioramus eating another dinosaur, a Parasaurolophus mother and its babies, and also a Velociraptor viewing. The rover then locks onto a larger dinosaur in the distance. Unfortunately, it's not the herbivore we were looking for, but instead a hungry Carnotaurus. A fun fact that the Carnotaurus was discovered in the 1990s while this attraction was under development. Originally, a T-Rex was going to be the big bad, as you might imagine, but Disney decided, thanks to this recent discovery, that this dinosaur should be worked in instead. The vehicle rocks as if nudged by the beast and speeds off to its next encounter with an actual vegetarian dinosaur, the Saltosaurus or sauropod. After a "whoops" from Dr. Seeker, which was removed from the audio for some reason in the 2010s, we zoom past a nest full of winged babies, before narrowly missing the mother pterodactyl overhead, which actually used to roll forward. The rover rolls down a hill, startling a series of Compsognathus, who leap over the ride path. Now stuck in the mud, the Carnotaur appears once again to the left, but physically charges at the vehicle. Luckily, the rover powers through the mud and begins to haphazardly serpentine through the trees, escaping both the monster and the meteorites. Sadly, we run right back into the Carnotaur, who bites toward the tourists before we somehow speed away again. The earthquake that startled the Carnotaur for us to escape also takes down a nearby tree, which thankfully is caught by the iguanodon we've been looking for all along, saving our lives. At the same time, the vehicle shoots a laser net around the creature. The life-ending meteor is now seconds from impact as Dr. Seeker tries to return the passengers to the present. We see the rock hurtling towards us as we narrowly escape through time and back to the Institute. As we return, we see a monitor showing the iguanodon made it back with us, now roaming the halls. Original plans had the dino appearing on the back of our vehicle via a Pepper's Ghost effect a la the Haunted Mansion via a mirror across the hallway. It was either due to a budget cut or it never quite worked being the reason this didn't make it in. It really depends who you talk to. Of course, you would then exit into the Dino Institute gift shop, where you could also see the continuing hunt by Dr. Seeker and the security for the iguanodon. The years were not kind to Countdown to Extinction and its later counterpart. The lasers in the vortex tunnel were broken for years before they were restored, albeit still an effect that would occasionally be broken. The pyro effects were completely removed and the strobes were toned down. That swooping pterodactyl, as I already mentioned, would stop moving early in the attraction's life and eventually was simply lit via spotlight. The compies who jumped over the track stopped their motion as well, simply lit in varying positions to simulate movement. The much simpler laser net for the iguanodon was turned off as well for some reason. Audio effects throughout the ride were also toned down as well to make it less scary, including the earthquake and the sounds of the Carnotaur gaining on the guests. The meteorite that careened towards guests would be removed as well, and the blinding return vortex rarely operated, if ever. Bigger changes would come on May 1st, 2000. To tie in with the theatrical release of the latest Disney film, the attraction was renamed Dinosaur. Strangely enough, the ride already contained references to the film, which had been in production for years at this point, and in fact had been inspired by the land. The dinosaurs from the ride were specifically modeled after those in the film, from the raptors to the Carnotaur to the iguanodon that resembled or may have been Aladar. The Aladar-looking dino would also grace the attraction's entrance in statue form now. The ride profile was reportedly toned down so that the height requirement could be lowered and more children could ride the attraction that was now tied into an animated film. The dinosaur animated film was not a financial success and faded into the background over the years, but the dinosaur name of the attraction remained. The most major change to the ride itself came in the form of a Carnotaur that was attached to a mechanism towards the end of the ride. Where the meteorite once hurled towards guests, instead, a static, non-animatronic Carnotaur body was pushed towards guests as they fell into the present. The remainder of the now titled Dinoland USA wouldn't include much more than a McDonald's French fry kiosk, the Restaurantosaurus, Chester and Hester's Dinosaur Treasures, and the dig site playground. With leftover land and a need for capacity, a temporary tent of fossil exhibits was erected called the Dinosaur Jubilee and the Fossil Preparation Lab. Some believe the tent was simply holding space for the excavator coaster, which had been publicly previewed leading up to the park's opening. Instead, a hastily concocted and poorly funded replacement was quickly developed, Chester and Hester's Dinorama. A pre-designed coaster layout was ordered for Primeval Whirl, and a simple spinner ride with flying dinosaurs that for some reason were not pterodactyls was called Triceratops Spin. You know, a tin toy top-themed non-flying dinosaur spinning flying dinosaur ride. It makes sense. The best area ever built on a laughable budget was produced, so much so that it developed a following that would actually have nostalgia for the carnival-esque Disney-fied garbage over time. It opened just a few years after the park in 2002 as a necessary capacity stopgap on the road to Expedition Everest. Later, the dinosaur attraction would experience a bit of a renaissance. The long-broken laser vortex was restored in 2013. In 2016, a massive refurbishment of the ride finally replaced the static compies with projection-based effects. The time travel vortex at the beginning of the ride was updated, and the laser net finally returned over Aladar's cousin in the ride's final moments. Cousin? Is it him? Who knows? At the September 2022 D23 Expo, though, Disney teased plans to replace Dinoland USA with two new lands, one for Moana and another for Zootopia. It appeared these blue sky plans explored the possibility of Dinosaur being rethemed to a high-speed police chase in the mammalian metropolis, kind of like a thrill ride version of Zootopia Hot Pursuit from Shanghai Disneyland. However, the plans never reached full approval. In August of 2024, it was instead announced at D23 that the area the ride was located in, Dinoland USA, would be replaced with a new one called the Tropical Americas. It is expected to open in the fall of 2027 with an Indiana Jones attraction of all things replacing Dinosaur. In September of 2025, it was announced that Dinosaur would close forever on February 2nd, 2026. The Legacy of Dinosaur is a strange one. Another masterful piece of 1990s Disney Imagineers storytelling, the ride turned a series of financial and creative mistakes into an indelible attraction that'll always live on in the hearts of the true believers. It may have not resonated with every guest, and especially not with the ones that chickened out at the door because they didn't understand what the cast member meant, that it wasn't a roller coaster but in fact a fast Jeep ride. No, it doesn't go upside down, ma'am. Anyway, getting off topic. Dinosaur and Countdown to Extinction won't be muttered in the same breath as Horizons, Journey into Imagination, or The Great Movie Ride, but it will go down as a cult classic, the likes of Maelstrom, surely to be kept alive by the most passionate of Disney fans the world over. I guess, in that respect, it made it. I knew it would. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more great content from The Parchive, and we'll see you real soon.